Welcome to Skinner and Chalmers' Weekly Roast. Today, Furry, Feathery, and Fiery, exploring the eccentric world of Skinner and Chalmers' pets.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Skinner and Chalmers' Weekly Roast, a podcast where only the steamiest topics are discussed. It's the 22nd of April, and I'm Superintendent Chalmers, and as always by my side is my good old friend, Principal Seymour Skinner. Welcome, Seymour. Nice to have you here again.
Hello, Chalmers, and hello to our wonderful listeners. Tonight, we're going to dive into a topic near and dear to both of our hearts, pets. Now, I know what you're thinking. Skinner, how on earth can you possibly own such a diverse menagerie? Well, sit tight and let the roasting commence.
Skinner, you always manage to set the stage so splendidly. And I'm certain our audience is eager to learn more about your fascinating collection of critters. But before we delve into your zoo, there's something important to address. One of our listeners, Deputies Kids for Life, requested a podcast episode about our visit to the Memmifield amusement park called Gigglewood Resort. Well, first off, a big thanks for your suggestion. But we've expanded on the idea and thought, why not organize a small community gathering at the amusement park and then report on it in a podcast episode?
Oh, yeah. This way we can get to know you all better and spend a fantastic day together at the amusement park.
Exactly. We've already asked on the Discord fan server if anyone wants to join us. But since not all our listeners are on there, we wanted to give you all the opportunity here.
Oh, yes. Some wonderful listeners have already volunteered on the fan server, our lovely familiar faces. So thank you very much for wanting to join us. But if you also want to be part of it, just leave a comment below on YouTube, and if you have a particular activity in the amusement park that we all should do together, just let us know.
Yes, we can't wait, and I'm sure we'll have a fantastic day making memories. So, to sum it up, just leave a comment along with the activity, if you have one in mind. Your name will then be mentioned in the podcast episode on that topic. The episode will probably be out around early or mid-May.
And we can't wait to see what activities you all suggest. Whether it's riding the roller coasters, exploring the themed areas, or even participating in some of the park's unique events, we're up for anything. So don't be shy, let us know your ideas. Let's hope the weather cooperates. Haha. Please just remember to get in touch as soon as possible so that we have enough time to plan and organize the trip. Let's say we close the registration list on the 24th April at the latest. I hope that's okay for you in terms of deadline. By the way, we'll put the link to the Discord fan server in the video description if you're not already part of it. There are lots of different channels and wonderful people there.
Indeed. And with that said, let's get to the main topic of today. Let's hear about my humble menagerie first.
Your menagerie?
Indeed, Skinner. I have adopted 2 pets. Wanna guess?
Let me think. I remember. I heard you got yourself a new pet. What could you have now? A unicorn, maybe. Or a phoenix.
No, Skinner, nothing quite so exotic. It's just a pet cloud. Don't let its simplicity fool you. It's a cute little cloud.
A cloud? Really? That sounds unusual. And the other one?
Well, meet Cumulus, my adorable pet cloud, and Alligator Snapping, the fearsome yet lovable alligator who keeps me company during my leisure time.
Oh my, can Cumulus reign on command? Maybe I could use that for my cooking.
No, unfortunately it can't, but it does create a lovely atmosphere around our backyard. And sometimes, if I'm lucky, it forms interesting shapes before dissipating for a while.
Doom? That does sound interesting. I might have to pay your home a visit one day to see this cloud of yours. By the way, how's your alligator doing? Still causing chaos in the neighborhood?
Yes, Snapping. He's been well behaved lately. Of course, there was that incident with Sonic, but we managed to smooth things over with some extra treats.
Oh, yes, our Sonic. Always getting into trouble? I remember him saying at the end of last week that you hadn't got your alligator under control yet. Your snapping must have brazenly broken Sonic's hedge in parts.
It was just a few branches and undergrowth, nothing that can't grow back after a year or two. Speaking of pets, how's life with 3 pet alligators? You know Winston, Mr. Jellybeans, and Gizmo? Do they ever get along?
Mostly, yes. Occasionally there are minor squabbles, but nothing major. I keep each other entertained.
And Cosmo, your orb pet, how's he doing these days? He and the little puppies are finally back, thanks to Master Chief.
Ah, Cosmo, I couldn't be happier that he's finally back with us, darling. The star of our show. Oh, he's been keeping me company while I experiment with different cuisines from around the world. Sometimes he even helps me taste test.
Helps you taste test? I thought he only had one job, looking adorable and glowing occasionally.
Yes, mostly that. But he's quite the connoisseur, I assure you. Not to mention his mighty orb powers. Anyway, I was thinking about getting another pet. Something unique and exciting. Any suggestions?
Well, Skinner, have you considered getting a dwarf lord? They're quite rare and fascinating creatures. Plus, you could probably find some interesting ways to incorporate them into your cooking.
A dwarf lord? Now, that's an idea worth exploring. I wonder what kind of dishes I could come up with a dwarf lord as a pet when he helps preparing it. Perhaps a Lord of the Rings feast?
Only you, Skinner, would name a dish after a popular fantasy series. I'm sure it would be delicious, though.
Absolutely. And you know what else I have? A culinary pet skeleton named Old Bartholomew. I bet he'd love being part of such a meal.
A culinary pet skeleton? Now, that's something I haven't heard of before. Interesting, despite your fear of spooky skeletons. How does he contribute to your cooking adventures?
Oh, he's fantastic. Whenever I need a bone for a recipe, he's always ready and rattling to help out. And did I mention he also serves as a waiter during dinner parties?
Well, Skinner, it seems like you've got quite the menagerie going on. I should really step up my game then. Maybe I'll adopt a second alligator next time.
2 alligators. Won't that be chaotic? You'll need a third person to keep track of them.
Actually, Skinner, I think I've gotten pretty good at managing Winston and Mr. Jellybeans. I'm considering naming the new one after you. Seymour roasted tail.
Chalmers, that's hilarious. But no, I think I'll stick to my current collection, thank you very much. So, tell me more about this banshee of yours. Are they as screamingly loud as I imagine?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I had to invest in some high-quality earplugs to block out her wails. But she does come in handy when I want to scare off unwanted guests.
Oh dear, I can already hear her shrieks echoing through Memafield. And speaking of unwanted guests, do either of your pets eat people? Just kidding, just kidding.
Yeah, very funny, Skinner. No, none of my pets have a taste for human flesh. Although I must say your pet volcano, Krakatoa, is quite intimidating.
Oh, don't worry about Krakatoa. He's harmless unless you happen to throw a match near him. Then watch out.
I see. Well, I guess that's one way to keep unwanted visitors at bay. Still, I think I prefer my cloud and alligators any day.
Indeed, we all have our preferences. It's amazing how diverse our pets are, isn't it?
Yes, it truly is. Each one adds its own unique flavor to our lives. We should talk about our pets in more detail for our listeners, don't you think?
All right, then let's discuss Zigzag, my dwarf lord. I've never had a pet like him before. What do you think about having a pet from Middle-earth?
That's certainly a novelty, Skinner, but I thought you didn't have it yet and wanted to buy it first.
That was just show for the listeners. I've had it for a long time.
Ah, I see. I've read about dwarf lords in various books, but never imagined owning one myself. Do they mine gold for you?
Is that exactly Chalmers? Though he does appreciate a nice drink now and then. We usually share a pint or two while discussing world politics.
Politics over ale with a dwarf lord, Skinner. Only you could make that sound normal. By the way, how does old Bartholomew contribute to your kitchen? Does he serve as a waiter like you mentioned earlier?
Yes. Old Bartholomew. He's an exceptional waiter indeed. His skeletal structure allows him to move around silently, which is perfect for surprising guests at dinner parties. Plus, he has developed quite the flair for serving food given his centuries of experience.
A centuries-old skeleton waiter with impeccable service. Sounds like quite the establishment, Skinner. Speaking of which, how does Cosmo feel about sharing the spotlight with these new additions?
Initially, there was a bit of jealousy, but after a few rounds of Who's a Good Pet, and some extra treats, he warmed up to both Zigzag and old Bartholomew.
Who's a good pet? Really, Skinner? You're training your orb pet to compete in dog shows?
No, not dog shows, Chalmers. It's a game we play where Cosmo demonstrates his cuteness, and if he wins, he gets a treat. Quite simple, really.
I see. The competition is fierce, I presume.
Fiercer than you'd imagine, but honestly, they all get along splendidly. Even Winston, mister. Jellybeans and Gizmo seem to enjoy Cosmo's company. As for alligator snapping, well, he's still trying to figure out what species Cosmo belongs to.
Of course, alligator snapping would be confused by an orb pet. Maybe next time, introduce him to a mermaid instead, when I'm coming with him.
And maybe next time, you should introduce alligator snapping to Sonic. See how he likes being chased around the neighborhood?
Ouch, Skinner. Low blow. Anyway, back to your pets. How do you manage to feed such a diverse menagerie? Don't tell me you've started a pet food business.
Well, almost. I do have to order quite a variety of supplies every month, but it's worth it for the companionship and entertainment they provide. Besides, I'm always experimenting with new recipes.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, you will hardly have any other choice for such pets, because companies are unlikely to produce large quantities of food for such animals. There are simply too few pet owners for that. It wouldn't be economical.
That's exactly the problem, but yes, I have to give them something, so I do it myself.
So, Skinner, have any of your pets picked up any human habits yet?
Cosmo seems to have taken a liking to reading cookbooks. He even tries to mimic my actions when I'm cooking. And Zigzag has shown a keen interest in geopolitics. He can hold quite an intelligent conversation on global affairs.
Geopolitics with a dwarf lord? Who knew they were so current on international affairs?
Indeed, and old Bartholomew has this uncanny ability to predict the weather based on bone cracking. He claims it's due to the marrow expanding or contracting depending on temperature changes.
Bone cracking as a weather forecast tool. Now, that's something new. And here I thought my cloud and alligator were unique.
Yes, our neighbors must wonder what kind of mad scientist lives here. Sonic and Shadow probably wish they had more conventional pets like squirrels or rabbits, just like the two of them have two Angora rabbits themselves.
Or perhaps a unicorn to keep things interesting. Speaking of neighbors, I heard Yugi had a little mishap with Mr. Jellybeans last week. Care to share the story?
Oh, Yugi. He tried to impress his friends by challenging Mr. Jellybeans to a race. Needless to say, Jellybeans won, dragging Yugi through the mud and across the lawn. Poor fellow ended up with grass stains everywhere.
Serves him right for picking on a reptile. I think from now on, Yugi will stick to card games.
Absolutely.
All right, Skinner, let's move on to another fascinating member of your menagerie. Krakatoa, your pet volcano. Your pet volcano. What classifies him as a pet anyway? Is he domesticated?
Well, Chalmers, Krakatoa isn't exactly domesticated, but we've reached a mutual understanding. He doesn't erupt randomly as long as I provide him with the necessary fuel and care.
Some fuel? You mean lava rocks?
Precisely. Lava rocks are his favorite snack. He adores them, especially the ones imported from Hawaii. Apparently, they taste quite exotic.
Exotic lava rock flavors? Who knew peat volcanoes could be so discerning?
Indeed, Chalmers. And if I forget to bring his daily ration, he lets out a small puff of smoke as a reminder. Quite endearing, really.
Endearing indeed. Do you take Krakatoa for walks around Memafield? Does he need a leash?
No leash required, thankfully. We usually go for hikes in the nearby hills. The thrill on his face when he sees fresh lava flows is priceless. Or when he sees other hills or even other big volcanoes.
A volcano going on a hike? Only you, Skinner, would own a pet that requires treks to active volcano sites.
It's not as bad as it sounds. Besides, who else can boast having a pet volcano?
And true, that's quite a unique selling point. By the way, how does Alligator Snapping feel about sharing the spotlight with Krakatoa?
Ah, snapping. He's quite fond of Krakatoa, actually. Whenever there's a threat, real or imagined, he tends to hide near Krakatoa, assuming that no one would dare approach a volcano. But I must admit, I do worry about Sonic and Shadow seeing Krakatoa. I imagine they might get jealous of such a fiery companion.
Jealous hedgehogs. Who would have thought? Just kidding. Anyway, back to Krakatoa. Have you ever considered using his eruptions to heat your home during winters?
That's an interesting idea, Chalmers. However, given his propensity for random eruptions, I fear it might cause more harm than good.
True. I suppose sticking to gas or electric heating is safer. Speaking of which, have any of your other pets expressed interest in Krakatoa's lava rocks?
Actually, Cosmo seems fascinated by them. He claims that the molten rock has healing properties and often uses it in his own cooking experiments.
Molten rock as a heating agent and a cooking ingredient? Only in Skinner's kitchen, I presume. In any case, I hope that Cosmo doesn't take you too much as a role model. Otherwise, I'll soon have double the work in this household.
Yes, only in my kitchen, and old Bartholomew occasionally uses the ash from Krakatoa's eruptions as a natural fertilizer for his little garden outside. When I look out of the window, I sometimes see things that old Bartholomew has grown.
Now, that's resourcefulness. I never realized a pet volcano could contribute so much to the community.
Indeed, Chalmers. Krakatoa may seem destructive, but he adds value in his own unique way.
Destructive yet valuable, just like most of our neighbors, am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Our neighborhood wouldn't be complete without its eccentricities.
All right, Skinner, let's discuss my humble menagerie. My cute little Cloud gets along well with all your pets, although Cumulus rarely interacts directly. He mostly hangs around above us, keeping everyone cool and providing a lovely atmosphere.
I wonder if Cumulus has ever tried to collect rainwater for you, Chalmers. His clouds could come in handy in times of drought.
Well, Skinner has tried to teach him, but he's still learning. Sometimes he rains a bit too heavily, causing a small flood in my backyard. But overall, I think we're making progress.
Don't worry, Chalmers. With your alligator and my volcano, a small flood here and there won't make much difference.
Very true, Skinner. And what kind of pet would you say Cumulus is? Is he domesticated?
Domesticated? Well, considering he floats around our backyard and occasionally brings us rain showers, I'd say yes. He's quite obedient, though he does have a tendency to disappear every now and then.
Disappear? How does that happen exactly?
Well, whenever the weather changes drastically, he tends to dissipate into thin air. But he always comes back eventually.
Fascinating. Do you think he enjoys living with you too? I haven't brought him with me that often.
Absolutely. He loves watching over our house and neighborhood, especially during sunsets. His colors change according to the sky's hues, making him quite the spectacle.
Yes, he does add a certain charm to our little corner of Mammothfield. As for new pets, I've been thinking about getting a chameleon. Their ability to blend in with their surroundings intrigues me. Plus, I think they'd get along well with Cumulus.
The chameleon. Now that's an interesting choice. It'd certainly make for some great conversations with our neighbors.
Yes, Sonic might start questioning why he's not a faster hedgehog or something similar.
But seriously, I think chameleon would enjoy living here with all the greenery and trees we have.
You know, Chalmers, I can see that working. Imagine Cumulus raining gently while the chameleon basks under the sun. Quite a picturesque scene, wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. And if the chameleon gets lonely, it can always chat with Cumulus about the weather.
Or ask Cumulus for tips on blending in with the environment.
Exactly. Hey, Cumulus, how do you manage to camouflage so perfectly? Is something he could ask?
Well, speaking of pets getting along, how do Winston, Mr. Jellybeans, and Gizmo usually get along with your pets? Given that both of us live close to each other, our pets must have met many times.
That's true. We often see each other during our daily walks. The pets seem to tolerate each other, although there are occasional squabbles. Cosmo seems particularly fascinated with Cumulus and often tries to catch raindrops with his orb. But generally, they keep to themselves. Winston and Mr. Jellybeans tend to hang around together, basking in the sun. Snapping spends most of his time lounging near the pond, waiting for unsuspecting fish to swim by. Occasionally, he'll challenge them to races, which usually ends with him winning, and the poor fish gasping for breath on the shore.
Really? Cosmo trying to catch raindrops? That sounds adorable.
Absolutely adorable.
Old Bartholomew sometimes helps Cumulus gather water droplets from various sources around the garden. Apparently, he thinks it's good exercise.
So, even among skeletons and clouds, there's room for friendship and teamwork. Who knew? Who knew?
Indeed. Who would have thought that such diverse creatures could coexist and even help each other out?
Only in our neighborhood, right? Where else would you find a headmaster with 3 peat alligators, a superintendent with a cloud for a pet, and a dwarf lord who discusses geopolitics over ale?
True indeed. Our neighborhood is full of surprises and eccentricities.
Just the way we like it. Speaking of which, shall we head inside our kitchen and start preparing tonight's dinner? I'm eager to see if you've managed to burn down the kitchen yet.
Burn down the kitchen? Me? Never. Besides, I have a feeling that old Bartholomew here would be most disappointed if I didn't serve him alongside a delicious meal.
Of course, Skinner, your dedication to your pets is truly admirable. Let's get cooking, then. After all, we wouldn't want an undercooked bowl of rice, would we?
Of course not, Chalmers.
All right, Skinner, let's wrap up this week's episode. We've talked about everything from Krakatoa's lava rock preferences to Zigzag's political insights. It's been quite an adventure, hasn't it?
Indeed, Chalmers. Each one of my pets has brought its own unique flavor to our lives. From Cosmo's culinary escapades to old Bartholomew's weather predictions, every day is an unexpected journey.
And don't forget Alligator Snapping's race challenges to Sonic. He must feel really left out without any Olympic-level competitions to participate in.
Oh, calm now, Chalmers. You know Sonic wouldn't stand a chance against a well-trained alligator.
Oh, please. Hedgehogs are faster than alligators.
Faster, maybe, but more cunning? Now that's another story altogether.
I rest my case.
Concede defeat, Chalmers. My alligator will reign supreme in Memofield.
Only on our podcast. Skinner, as we sign off today, remember to always keep an open mind towards the unusual and embrace the quirks that life throws at us. After all, who knows what kind of peculiar pets might show up next door?
Well said, Chalmers. Until next time, folks, this is Skinner and Chalmers signing off. Remember, the podcast is always better when cooked with a dash of chaos and a pinch of the absurd. Good night, Memofield.
Good night, everyone, and happy dreaming with your very own unique menagerie.